meeting. Honourable members, unfortunately, the chairperson is not available to convene this meeting, so we have to follow the standing rules of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. It says in Standing Rule 82.3
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Derek America. I'm the acting chairperson for this particular meeting. Our regular chairperson has tendered his apology, and the members deemed it fit to put me into this position for this afternoon. The meeting commenced at 2 o'clock, where we had a briefing from the AG's office, as well as Ms. Annelies Celia of the Audit Committee presented their report to the Standing Committee. The members of the committee and engage the respective parties on the content of the report, and to give themselves more context in terms of what the audit outcome and findings were. And we will now have this engagement with the department to account for section C and E of the annual report. But before we proceed to that, I'm going to ask the members to introduce themselves. On my left-hand side is Mr. Duncan Davids. He's the procedural officer. And then I'll, ask my colleagues to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Chair. Chair, my name is Matlodi Maseko, and I'm the permanent member to the Standing Committee.
Good afternoon, Chair. Andreas van der Westhuizen, member of the committee.
Thank you, colleagues. And I'm going to ask the Minister and his team to introduce themselves, so that although we know some of the faces, we don't know all of them, and certainly it will make engagement.
Audit, thank you.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. I'm Annelies Celia, the Acting Audit Committee Chairperson.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Ashley Alkers. I am from the Auditor General's Office, Deputy Business Unit Leader.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Preston Whaley. I'm the Senior Manager.
Good afternoon, Ceylon Africa Audit Manager on the audit. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Now that we have introduced ourselves to each other, I'd like to introduce to you Honourable Trehu, who just arrived now. Welcome, Honourable Tlihu. Okay, colleagues, I'm going to ask the Minister if you wish to make a few opening remarks before we proceed to the content of the two sections we'll be dealing with. Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's indeed, I think this is the first physical meeting I've had with SCOPA in the last 2 years, so it's really welcoming to see all of you. For the period under review, Chairperson and members, it's been a very difficult period. The complexity within our sector has also increased over this period. And I think you'll note that with some of the AG's findings and the notes of the AG also reflects as such. But all in all, we are here to account, and we will looking forward to engage you on the various aspects which you will seek to now engage in terms of governance and our financial statements, but also to keep note that we are preparing to wind up the department as we now move towards the Department of Infrastructure, which will go live on the 1st of April 2023. So our objective now as we wind up is to ensure that we wind up properly and effectively and efficiently, so that the new department, once it goes live on the 1st of April 2023, that we are ready to be held accountable as well in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. CFO, Mr. De Wet, if you like to make a few opening remarks, you're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would have loved to take you through the audit report on a high level, but I will be led by yourself just to give context and just to summarize the audit report and what it was about. But I will be led by the Chair and the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. De Wet. Sorry, I just missed the protocol. But all protocol observed, Ms. August.
Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, Chairperson. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. I'm very comfortable that you invited our CFO to address you. It has been a difficult year, but the passion and the purpose of the Human Settlements team rings through in what we have delivered. I am going to hand over to the CFO to continue from here, but just to thank the team that's been here to prepare and the audit committee for the inputs that they've given. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. August. What we're going to do now, I'm going to present the sections. I'm going to open the discussion for questions from members, and the department will note all the questions, and once we have exhausted the first round of questions, then the department will respond, and should there be then follow-up questions on the responses or on this particular section we'll be dealing with, we will do likewise, and then we will proceed to the next section. So colleagues, may I ask you to be conscious about the section we're dealing with, that we don't, prematurely refer to section E, that we just stick to section C, and in that way we will make it much easier for the department to respond in a much more clearer way, as opposed to jumping around and trying to answer your questions. So, on page 51 of the annual report for the financial year 2021-2022, from page 1, which deals with the governance matters of this department, and it's also referred to in the yearbook annual report as part C. Colleagues, I present to you page 51 to page 67. It deals with governance matters in the Department of Human Settlements for the mentioned accounting period. So you may ask any questions, within that the parameters of the pages that I've stated. I also ask if it is all possible, and I'm sure it would be, that you reference the page from which you asking the question, so it will only make it easier for the responses from the department. So, colleagues, with that, I'm opening the floor for your questions, and I will recognize you in the order that you indicate your desire to speak, so to speak. Honourable Konlu, I recognize you. Honourable Moran is second, and we will take you, Shiranj. Honourable Tehu, recognize you thirdly, and then we take it from there. And Honourable Leseko, and then certainly lastly for the first round, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Honourable Konlu, you're welcome.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Let me greet the Provincial Minister and the Department. Just wanted to understand from the Minister, by when should we expect a clean audit from his department? If he can give us what are the challenges that he's experiencing to get this department to a clean audit. The second one, Chair, in Part C, the report indicates the Internal Control Directorate or Subdirectorate. Actually, a panel was established to address the audit-related matters and the risks during the audit process. So one is just interested, what are the details of the action plans that have been implemented to sort of improve the situation in as far as those audit-related matters. And I'm asking this in relation to what the current audit that we're dealing with, the kind of risks that it has actually raised. And also in as far as that, what are the details of the recommendations that have been implemented from that particular subdirectorate? I'm interested in that for now. But also, Chair, if as part of the risks, I see the issue of compliance with some of the legislations is actually also a matter that is mentioned, I think, from what is in the report, implementation and adherence to laws and regulations. And I would be interested, because I don't want to go to the financial issues, but I would just be interested from the department to understand what are some of the legislations currently, that the department seems to be struggling with, and what would be the reasons in that regard. And some I'm sure the department is aware of as we are going to get into the financial or the audit outcomes. But I'm just raising them now from a risk point of view, which actually is also raised in the key emerging risk by the Auditor General. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Konlu. Honourable Moran.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair, and good afternoon to everyone present. Look, Chair, page 62, and it speaks to the internal control. Now, I've said this morning, Chair, whenever the Premier or MEC of local government speaks about audit outcomes, and specifically MEC Bradell, on the audit outcome of municipalities, he prides them as being amongst the best or the best, based on the audit outcome. Now, here is a department for the second consecutive year receiving an audit opinion, basically regressing. Chair, And it comes, Chair, where there was a panel appointed, headed by the Director of Financial Management, to see whether they can deal with some of those issues, and it seems it's not working. So, Chair, we would like to know going forward, what are the action plans that's been implemented, it's going to be implemented as we move forward, to make sure that we get to a clean audit. That's the one. The second one, Chair, also, and that's also my last one, on page 62, paragraph 4. It speaks to your provincial procurement policy framework. And let me just check. No, it's not that one. It's not that one, Chair. Sorry, Chair. It's page 67. 67, development and implementing of preferential procurement policy, Chair. And this is about an issue where companies contracted by the department refusing subcontracting, Chair. And we'd like to understand why it was the case. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Moran. Honourable Trehu, I recognize you.
Thanks, Chair. Mine is on page 53. And it's on the table there that allows...
My apology, you saying page 43 or?
53.
53.
You said it was from 51 till...
Yes,
so I'm on 53.
I think I just misheard you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. No, I'm on page 53. So there is a table there about MCO members and their meetings. And the concern is that is the level of attendance of the senior managers there who are holding the fort there, which is Miss Maisela and Mr. Smith. And then what we want to understand is that out of the 9 MCO members, only 3 attended all the meetings fully. And also that Miss Maisela and Mr. Smith also missed some meetings. And then the worrying concern is that these are the 2 members who are responsible for human settlement implementation, which is a huge concern in this province. But then those responsible are not even attending these meetings. That what could be the serious challenge that results in them, because doesn't this affect service delivery? That's it, the first question. And then on page 55, regarding the fraud and corruption that is stated there, there are 2 cases there that were closed in 2021, 2022, and the description that is provided there is very vague. So I just wish to understand, because we're dealing with a critical thing there, corruption and fraud. What exactly is the nature of these non-compliances, and and what were the findings there in the conclusion, and what is the nature of these that were opened from the 31st of March 22? Have they been resolved yet? Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Trehu. Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I just want to find out, and it's on the issue where Member Ngondla talked about of the non-compliance. And when we looked at the briefing note of the Auditor General talking to the issue that started from 2012, I just want to find out if there is any breach of fiduciary duty on that. And then maybe if that's the case, if maybe the CFO can help us to give a guidance and explain in the breach of in terms of the non-compliance when coming to the legislation, when coming to the material irregularity that the Auditor General alluded to. I think I will stop on that one, because when I look at what the Auditor General said, it talks about the code, and then to me the code in human settlements has been about the policy principles, the norms and standards. It's not a legislation. So I want to find out that now the non-compliance it falls into, where does the non-compliance part of it on the material irregularity comes from? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. From my side, only one item, and that is the compliance status of potential suppliers. I would have thought that one of the first items that you would check is whether a bidder is tax compliant. Yet it seems to me as if this has been a recurring problem, and as if the internal controls did not quite prevent this from reoccurring in the year under review. And I'm just wondering whether something which to a layperson like myself seems to be a very simple matter, to be able to check whether somebody is indeed tax compliant by asking for that person's, in the old days it used to be a tax certificate, now I think it's a link that they forward to you. Perhaps you can just explain to us what is the dilemma that you encounter? Why is this a recurring finding? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. I just want to conclude this round. Honourable Mseko. Okay, can I just aid perhaps with clarity from my own mind? Does that relate to the FLIS non-compliance, or is it something different?
It falls under the non-compliance.
The material
for material irregularity,
okay.
For the CFO to try to give us the clarity when coming to that material irregularity.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleague. Just to conclude this section, in relation to the question posed by Honourable Moran in terms of what would it take the department to get a clean audit. Now, in relation to that, because the department is going to merge into a new department, infrastructure. So we're not going to have in the next financial year, possibly after the merger, could be something different. So the question that I'm asking is the Department of Human Settlements going to become a sub-program in the new infrastructure department, and how is it going to then impact? Of course, a new sort of governance framework will have to be sort of also crafted as a result of the merger or amalgamation of the various departments. So yeah, it's going to be tough, I suppose, initially for all of you. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to hand over to Ms. August and to the Minister to direct as to who is the best person to respond to particular questions. Minister?
Okay, Chairperson, I'll go first because the first question was, when can we expect this department to get a clean audit? Chair, obviously, in my opening remarks, I said, we come through a difficult year. There's a lot of complexities. And as the executive authority tasked to lead this department, I must say, for a second year running, to get an unqualified audit with specific findings, and some of these findings are actually a recurral of the previous year. One then must acknowledge something is wrong in your system. It doesn't say that, our end users, the qualifying beneficiaries of the Western Cape, did not get value for their money. No, that is not what this is saying, but it's clearly showing that there are internal deficiencies within the administrative processes of the department. Now, when we got the same audit finding last year, we set on ourselves the objective of actually retaining our clean audit status, which we did not manage to do. Now, together with the executive, or the acting HOD and the full executive, I have had a meeting regarding this, because obviously, as we wind up this department, I would love to wind this department up with a clean audit. And part of that is effectively and efficiently to deal with the administrative deficiencies. If you look at the management report, which accompanies the audit report, it's clear where we need to work on. It's clear where things have gone wrong in the past, because the bulk of the samples focused on, barring the FLISP one, all precede my term of office. But I must take account, and I will take account for the findings or the notes which the AG has noted. So yes, we do have a plan of action to ensure that we retain our clean audit status. But Chair, change is not easy. And as we are now winding up this department, you can also see as Cabinet, we have embarked on a cultural change journey of the whole provincial government as a whole. And yes, for some of our staff, change is not easy. It is not easy to adapt when this department will now be going for the second time in the last 15 years. They will be going through another merger to form or be part of a new department. So as we strive to ensure that we wind up and get a clean audit, we must also do so fully knowing that there is a cultural need within my department. There needs to be a higher level of accountability. It's in the AG's report. I can't run away from that because I acknowledge it. I accept what the AG said in a lot of the instances. But currently, in terms of where we will fit in after, as part of refreshes, you now ended off, the current structural permutation of infrastructure, or the conceptual draft, has been finalized. And, the new Department of Infrastructure will consist basically of 5 legs, of which human settlements will be one of the legs. Within the vision and mission plan, which I've concluded in May month already, the first draft for the Department of the Premier, we've set clear objectives, and we're now busy finalizing how the structure will look to attain those objectives. And we've packaged each of these 5 legs within the new Department of Infrastructure, having a specific focus, taking and enhancing where we can, but also acknowledging that the other department, which will form part of this, has got excellent processes, which is where the AG has found the Department of Human Settlements lacking. So that is where we are heading, but at an appropriate time, once everything is concluded, then I will report to the relevant standing committee on exactly how the structure will look.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Minister has covered a lot of it, and when he has said is the culture of accountability. What we have done already since the management report has come out is that we have instituted the preparation of the gap report. We're meeting every week in relation to that report as executive to understand the challenges and to provide the support needed to get there. We've also instituted that the finance team will meet with every chief directorate and every director to unpack specifically their role in the outcomes that have been raised in terms of the management report. We've set a deadline of the 28th of October for all consultations to be done and for the report to be up to standard and defendable. Our finance team will provide more information on that. If I can answer perhaps just the one question that was raised by the member in terms of the UMCO, before I hand over to the CFO, you'll note that Ms. Mayosela became acting head of department So even though she wasn't captured as the attending as the chief director for implementation, she was attending as the acting head of department. So when you add up her figures, 1 and 3 makes it 4. So she attended all of the meetings, and Mr. Smith was attending as an acting chief director for that period. So if you add his and Mr. Denton's up, it becomes 3. So Ms. Marcella attended as the chief director for 1, and then the other 2 acted as chief director in her absence. They attended then. So there was full representation. It's just that there were people acting and in different positions. I'll hand over to the CFO for the remaining questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. August. Mr. Durant.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah. Details on the gap for last year. We compiled the gap. We reported against those gap and the action plans to the audit committee on a quarterly basis, also to the management meeting. What was left that we were found wanting on was one case of a tax compliance one, and I'm going to speak what the tax compliance part works like. That's a date of award. So the date when they submit their tenders, that doesn't count because they will be tested against that as well. So as part of the audit outcome last year, there was 4 findings the previous financial year. This year we had the 1, and that was for a tender that was awarded on at the 31st of May 2021, and that was before we implemented the additional control measures, and that was 719,000 rand, and that was towards Elvium. The Auditor General in their management report to the management of the department, they indicated the quality of the submitted annual financial statements, the AFS, improved from the 2021 financial year, and that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Western Cape Department of Human Settlements as at the 31st of March, meaning that it's unqualified. Our issue was on 2 performance indicators and program 3 and program 4, and it was the first time that title deeds were audited. So that's where we were found wanting. And when we get at the audit report, I will say what was the issues there. So we report to the audit committee, and we really thought that we were at the right stage, but the financials were clean, but we were found wanting on the performance information. What was identified as a non-compliance was in terms of DORA. DORA stipulates in section 16.6 that the Human Settlement Development Grant is only to be gazetted to accredited municipalities. In that case, it will only be the City of Cape Town. In the province, we gazette to every municipality. Okay, and that is where we were found wanting. There is an interpretation problem. We sent it through a technical review. We had actually 2 opinions, but later on they concluded that they agree with the Auditor General. So what the impact of this will be, that we will not be allowed to shift any funding from one municipality to another municipality after the adjustments budget. So it might happen that there's a project running in a municipality, but we will have to stop and not pay the municipality because we cannot pay them because of this thing, unless we stop the gazetting of the allocations of the non-accredited municipalities. That is a huge impact on our delivery, and we make use of the municipalities. And they are actually agents of the department. So we are in discussions with the Provincial Treasury to see how we can resolve this issue, but it has got a huge impact. Then on the preferential regulations, procurement regulations, those stuff that's there came from prior years. That was still the buyer's professional services agreement, framework agreement from 14-15 and then 18-19. Then the seal and tight security tender that was found as irregular when it was awarded in 2021. So all that stuff came through, and all expenditure against that will be treated as irregular. But all the irregular expenditure of the past has already been condoned by the Provincial Treasury. The Provincial Treasury actually found that the Red Ants contract was not irregular, and then it must be removed, and it was removed from the, but we still report on it as well. So as the acting HOD has indicated, we've already started, and we are at very advanced stage with the action plans. New thing what we're doing is we will be engaging with the line functions as well, so that they are part of these action plans and it's not just a finance function. The subcontracting part, this is the preferential procurement. There was not a finding again on that specific one. That's the feasibility studies that was not performed. Then the acting HOD did speak to the meetings that was attended, so everybody was there, all four. The material irregularity was done and identified by the AG, and the member Maseko indicated, but material irregularity is non-compliance with legislation. Now, the housing code is not legislation, but it was issued in terms of an act. So we will be taking it up, but we are contesting that. We've put into place the necessary controls, and as the AG has indicated in their audit report, they actually said AXA concluded all relevant appropriate actions have been taken to resolve the material irregularity. So they are confident after they've tested the controls and the further cases, transactions that took place, that we implemented the necessary controls and so on. So and the question was also, was it a national problem? It was a national problem. I don't know if there was findings by other, but subsequently, because of how you interpret allowances and commissions and so on, the policy was changed as from the 1st of April 2022 to exclude all of that. So it's now only basic salary plus housing-related allowances that is taken into account. So one of the reasons why it also took long for them to implement it was that it was a couple of times it was scheduled to go to MINMEC, the revised policy, but then for one or other reason, maybe the minister was changed with another minister, or there was no time, it was not approved, but we pushed it through, and we must thank the minister, our minister, that he drove that thing, so we couldn't go on any further with that uncertainty. So that is being dealt with, but we are still following up the controls that we put in place. We're still using that control, although the policy has changed, until we are comfortable that everybody is trained and know exactly how to determine the value of the subsidy. I spoke to tax compliance status. That is the tax compliance status of suppliers changes throughout the month. Just before they, for instance, have to submit their VAT, they all become non-compliant, and they submit their VAT, they become compliant. But what we've done after the previous audit, we implemented the certificate, whereby, and then we attach all the CSD documentation before the accounting officer signs off on that contract on that specific day. Then we check for the compliancy. So the date of award is then, we ensure thereby that everybody is tax compliant and we abide to that legislation. I think that was all the questions. And then on the program in the new infrastructure department, yeah, we become a program. Everything is just one level lower, but the same structure will be implemented. So housing will be identifiable in the bigger structure of the new infrastructure department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeWet. Colleagues, you have any follow-up questions? I recognize Honorable Tehu, Honorable Van der Westhuizen, Honorable Kondlu. Okay. In that order, Honorable Tehu.
Thanks, Chair. I'm very much concerned, let me so say, because what normally happens here in this province is that it's very easy to shift the blame or to play some kind of comparison with national. We want to hear from the government of Western Cape, because what we hear now is it's easy for you to say, no, it's a national thing. Why didn't you comply? That's what we want to understand. But what I know is that all departments of Western Cape, they easily compare themselves to national instead of saying that we have faltered here and this is how we're going to remedy the situation going forward. And I think that's a reason why you would continue with non-compliances, because the understanding is that it's done everywhere else. I'm not happy with that response and even the question itself, it was meant to shield the response before you even responded. So I want you to understand that we noted that, because here where we are being shielded from accountability.
Thank you, Honorable Kondlu. Before I take Honorable Van der Westhuizen, is a point of order on the
Chair, I ask question to have an understanding and clarity, not on shifting, because I think understanding more of the code of human settlement and the legislations, it's my responsibility to do that. And I can only get the clarity of some of the actions of the department to do an oversight if I get the clarity from the department of why a matter happened. So if it's offensive to honorable member, you'll have to bear with me.
Order, Chair.
I'm lost now,
Yeah,
colleagues. Let's
really.
just, I'm not going to respond to that. Thank you. I've heard you, Honorable Mseku. Honorable Van der Westhuizen, I recognize you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My apologies if I've missed the response regarding the tax compliance status of suppliers. If you could just ask that we get a response.
Honorable Kondlu, Minister, I'll be with you now.
Okay, Chair, I wanted a follow-up on what the response of the Minister regarding the clean audit, because I think what Minister is indicating, if I'm hearing him correctly, because the Department of Human Settlement is already being winded up, as you say, because now you are transitioning to infrastructure department. That's how I understand. So it means this department is being winded up under it what do you call it? Under it having an audit report. An audit report that is unqualified with findings in the last consecutive years of its existence. That's what it means. Now, when you say there are culture issues, because that's what you repeated, there are culture issues that I'm assuming these are the culture issues that are prohibiting this department to realize the objective as an executing authority of this department. Are you then saying, and I would want you to explain what are these cultural issues you are referring to? If you can just speak a layman's pedestrian language that I could understand, because cultural issues, I don't know what you mean. so that we get to understand and what is it that you are putting in place. And I'm hoping that the acting HOD can also speak to that. What are these, because I think you also alluded to them, what are these cultural issues and the extent to which they are prohibiting the department to realize its objective of a clean audit. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Nkondlo. Honourable Masika, I'm just referring back to you. Is there any questions you'd like to ask for clarity purposes?
I'm done, Chair.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Any other colleagues who'd like to ask questions for clarity purposes? Okay, handing over to the Minister and the Department. Minister.
No, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members for the questions. Obviously, Member Nkondlo, when I speak of culture and culture challenges, and I also refer to the fact that the Cabinet is now embarking in and then looking at the entire government in terms of a culture change. So let me start from there, then you will understand when I reflect in the mirror, because I'm the face of the department, why I say there's cultural change issues within the department itself. As we come now through COVID-19, we're now in a post-COVID-19 reality. The reality is that government can't function and work the way that it is. It's insane to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome. And as a provincial government, we acknowledge that, and part of that journey is to invoke a culture change. What does that, what do we as Cabinet mean by that? It's to become more citizen-centric, to focus on the citizen, and how can we ensure that that which we deliver, all departments together in uniform as a provincial government, at the end of the day, the citizen feels that impact of our delivery. That's what we mean by change in the organization. Now, in human settlements, obviously, all provincial ministers were tasked now to implement, as part of refresh, a focus on culture change and the need for culture change. And obviously, as part of that process, is once you start focusing, and in this case, you now need to identify, as you now move from being one department to now being part of a department, still with your own functions and legs, what things do you need to address and you need to change? Now it is, and this ties into what Member Treger was saying and what the CFO was trying to explain. The housing code is not written in the Western Cape. Provincial MECs, as it's defined, we implement the housing code and seek to address our residents' needs in terms of the housing code and the programs as part of that. But if your system is engineered to focus on one thing the whole time, and your staff become complacent, there's a need for cultural change within your department. That's why I don't talk about other departments when I sit here. I talk about my department. I reflect on what we have done wrong and what we've done right. And that's what I mean by culture change. I could have sat here and tried to deflect accountability. I chose to take accountability for my department's performance, which is what this entire executive team must also take. That is what I mean by cultural change and the internal cultural deficiencies within the system. There are people that work very hard in this department, yes, but the results which you now see before you today is not a real reflection of everybody's hard work that they've put in. And that is what I meant when I said that, and so I've answered Member Treger as well. So, you know, where am I deflecting, or the CFO? But within those confines, and yes, like I said, I agree with the majority of the AG's findings. There are some I don't agree with for specific reasons, and that the CFO touched on. But I take accountability together with my acting HOD for the result which we have in front of you. And I want to see that change as part of culture change, that we accept accountability, but also execute our plan to wind up this department to ensure we have a clean audit. When we come here next year again, because we are going to have to appear before you, even though there's going to be a new department. As we wind up this department, we must round up an annual performance plan. We must round up our annual financial statements. So I will be here just to wind up the final component of winding up this department. So we must get a clean audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. August? Huh?
Thank you. Minister has covered us, but maybe if I can just give some examples. And Minister, let me start where Minister ended. The officials work really hard to do what we need to do. You can see that we push to meet our targets, that we committed to what we do, but there are small inefficiencies. There are inefficiencies that have crept into the system that we need to address. And the CFO has already started to address that. For example, with the FLIS, we've set up a team that ensures that the actions that's needed to remedy what was found by the AG is being addressed. So we're trying to create accountability at all levels, not just at the finance team, but the persons that are implementing the subsidy administration, for example, that they're being held to account for the decisions that are being made. So we're trying to filter it through simple things like the Auditor General will say the information was not submitted on time, or that there isn't an SOP for other performance evidence. Those things need to be actioned. There's clear guidance within the department in terms of turnaround times and all of those things, and everybody needs to be held accountable to that. So we, the words are a little bit hard, but you know, in every situation, there's a couple of, it's not everyone that's doing all of these things all the time. There are a few things that are happening within the organization, and we are putting in place measures to hold everyone accountable to the same standards that we've been set. We're not deflecting in any way, and Minister's right in saying that we take accountability for what happened. We do adhere to the national prescripts, and in terms of the FLIS, those prescripts were set for us. But I think if I can hand over to the CFO then, there were two questions, and I think it's if the CFO can give some information on the tax compliance again. We have mentioned that. And then I think the shifting the blame to the national department, just to give some more input on the criteria that were for the FLIS that were overlooked, and just to maybe give some information, create the clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. August. Mr. De Wet.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just on tax compliance, right, okay, the legislation says must be tax compliant on date of award. So tenderers submit their bids and tenders, they are tax compliant, but when we sign off, they were found not be tax compliant. That was identified in the prior financial year as a shortcoming. I think there was 4 cases and was quite a lot of money as well. Then we put in the corrective actions. That was now after October. On the 24th of October, we finished our audit last year. So, but you cannot do something retrospectively, okay? So there was a case that was non-compliant when award in May 2021, okay, for an amount of 719,000, and that is what we've paid against that supplier. Okay, so but we've put corrective measures in place. There's a certificate that goes with the tender file to the accounting officer when he or she signs off and award the bid. So with the proof that all the governance are in place. So tax compliance, all the registrations and so on, triple BEE, everything. Okay, so that has been, but you cannot do it retrospectively. Okay, so we've addressed that specific shortcoming. I must mention, remember, it was found non-compliant this year, it's irregular, but there might still be expenditure incurred in this financial year against that one. But we will send through the stuff through for condonement, and then, but it will still reflect there as a irregular expenditure in this year. That is unfortunate how it works. Something that was irregular until all expenses and expenditure that has been incurred against that specific irregular tender has been done, it will always come through. But we will report on it, and it will be come through as condoned. The only condoned it was. Then the issue that stood between us and a clean audit was on the performance information. Okay, I have indicated that's the first time that the title deeds has been audited. We had challenges there. The one issue was around the indicator was not well defined, and the one place we talk about in the APP of housing units transferred, while the technical indicator says that it's transfers that take place, not housing units, and there's a difference. So there's no reliability on that specific indicator. But in the meantime, Mr. Nkosi and actually nationally it is a problem. we created and do sector-specific indicators, taking all these findings into account so that we can correct that. So we will be changing our indicators in the APP for next year. We're actually going to change already some of them in the adjustments budget already to address the shortcoming identified here. Then on the fraud and the cases at forensics, I'll ask Shahida to just give feedback on those two cases that's still there. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable members and Chair, through you. During the previous financial year, there were 4 cases that were closed. I can give you the nature of the cases that were closed, but the cases that are still open is still under investigation, and that the nature hasn't been revealed to us yet. It's only when the cases are closed that we will know the details regarding those cases. So if you'd like, I can give you the nature of the cases that were closed, the 4 cases. Is that fine? Okay, the first case details where there were alleged tender irregularities. The forensic services, they received a complaint from a whistleblower who reported that there were several allegations of tender irregularities and maladministration in respect of a specific housing project. PFS investigated the allegations and whether a named contractor was preferred by the department compared to the other non-responsive bids. After their investigation, they concluded that the allegation was unfounded, and then they agreed that the evaluation and outcome, because we have an objective process, that the evaluation and outcome reached by the department, there appears to be no basis for the allegation, and that certain bidders were made non-compliant while others preferred bidders are not in the same circumstances. So that was the first case. The second case was a whistleblower alleged that a control works inspector, which is a level 8 official, based at one of our department's regional offices, is corrupt. They made references to the contractor having a hand in getting a certain bidder successful, getting them to be successful. And upon conclusion, it was also revealed that this bidder has got the official's role during the award and execution of the 2 projects mentioned was negligible. So the whistleblower's allegations were therefore unsubstantiated. And that's a report from the Provincial Forensic Services. And then the third case was where there was alleged irregularities with regard to the allocation of provincial rental housing. This case comes from the 2021 financial year, where the department, where there were instances of the allocation of rental housing units to officials within the department. One official, it was found that one official, he concluded a contract with his wife, that's why I mentioned it was a 2021 year. Since then, we've put in controls place. We now have a rental allocations committee, and that official no longer works for the department. So there was another official involved as well. She or he did not meet the qualification criteria as part of our rental policy. And that official is still remaining in our employ, and he or she has been disciplined with regards to that. So there's only that one official that's still in our employ. The provincial PFS, the Forensic Services, also recommended that we flag that employee that has left our employment, so that in the event that he or she wants to re-enter our employment, that they are flagged for that. And then the fourth case, it has got to do with expansion of a contract where the investigations confirmed that the accounting officer approved an expansion. And they were not supposed, it was a previous acting HOD, they were obviously not supposed to approve that expansion. But since then, it has to do with a consumer readiness program. The contract amount was 172,000, but the SCM, however, our supply chain management, did not issue an appointment letter, nor did the department conclude an updated service level agreement with this contractor or bidder. So, and no claims or payments has been made with regards to this contract. So, thank you. That was the 4 cases.
Thank you so much. Mr. De Wet, is there anything you'd like to add?
Just with regards to the FLISP issues, in terms of our controls, we have done an updated standard operating procedure with regards to the FLISP subsidies, and internal control will, they have implemented 2 controls in terms of where the application process starts, so that we make sure that we get the amount of subsidy right, and also before a letter is sent to the successful subsidy beneficiary. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, any other follow-up questions? Okay, Honourable van der Westhuizen, Honourable Kondlu, and Honourable Moran.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for hopping on this tax compliance, but my impression is that the SARS will not issue a tax compliance certificate if your taxes of, let's say, 2-3 years ago is still not in order. So my question is just in order, because you kind of said, well, we might have another problem with the Auditor General picking up that some of these people are not tax compliant because we only discovered it later, etc. So my question is, if you get a tax compliance certificate from any of those people now, surely the Auditor General will accept it and say, well, that means that last year there may have been a dispute, but that dispute has been resolved. Wouldn't that be a possibility for you to avoid this as a recurring finding? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. Honourable Kondlu.
Okay, Chair, I just wanted to understand, does the department, in terms of its policies, have a sexual harassment policy? And in as far as conflict of interest, I think taking from what the acting director has just indicated on those 4 cases, is the current regime you have extending to members of the families? Now that I think one of the cases you had raised was an official whose wife did business. Is it because your current policies or conflict of interest does not include a declaration of family members that would have slipped through the system? And if, Chair, the last one, if indeed with what both the HOD and the Minister have raised, we could just ask, maybe as part of our resolutions, to actually get which are these areas of accountability that are a concern, which programs, which levels of management are these, and what are these plans that are in place to sort of correct and ensure that there is improvement in those areas you referred to, that they are small, but it seems they've got an impact in the performance of the department. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Moran.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. I've now heard that the acting, I'm not sure whether it was the previous acting HOD that's not acting anymore, or whether it was the one that is now director at Drakensberg State Municipality who approved the expansion that was not supposed to be approved. Whether it's the previous acting HOD or whether it's that one. And then, Chair, and I'm not sure whether I'm happy with the response when it comes to the tax issue. Because I was a number of years at the municipality and we knew that even if the tax certificate was in order when the contract was awarded, when payment is made, that tax certificate should be in order. Now, when I'm listening to the response, it seems that the department was not aware that the tax certificate should be in order when payment is made. That's what I picked up, Chair, that, and it was only highlighted by the auditor or when the department was audited, that they picked up that we were not supposed to pay this person because his tax. Sy besigheid met SARS was hier in plek op daai spesifieke stadium, nie, Chair. And also the issue of the title deeds. And I've heard the response was, it's the first time that the department has been audited when it comes to title deeds. So one wonders, all these years prior to the one where the department now has been audited, where it was the same case. Because according to the AG's office, the information that's been provided was not reliable. And we have asked the office, is it more or is it less? And we've got an answer, but let us ask you that question. But the information was not reliable, Chair. And it brings you back to the issue of when will we get in clean audit when all these type of things is happening within the department. Let me stop there.
Thank you, honourable members. Mr. De Wet.
Chairperson, I can assure the member that we do not do any payments if somebody's tax are not in order. That's actually how we picked up that specific one. That service provider. He waited 6 months for his money before he got tax compliant. That specific one. The issue with, remember, the payments that was done, that will be done against the irregular contract. Okay, award that we done will always be deemed as irregular. It doesn't matter if it's now tax compliant. All our payments are only done to tax compliant service providers. I can assure the member that that's what we do. Then I thought, right, okay, maybe we can deal with the title deeds. What was the issue there when we come to Part E? Or otherwise we can deal with it now. It depends on the chairperson.
You know, I would suggest that we deal with it during Part E so that we don't have a duplication of responses.
Then we have a sexual harassment policy with a sexual harassment officer that deals with all of that. The AG didn't find any family member doing business with the department. The issue here on that rental unit was where the official allocated a rental unit to his wife. And subsequently, we've changed all the ways that things are being done. There's an allocation committee. It's not in one person's power to allocate rental units. So, yeah. So there was no family members doing business with the department. And then Shaida wants to add something, through the chair.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Honourable member, with regard to that question, with regards to the rental unit that was allocated, it should be noted that the husband who allocated a unit to his wife, they had different surnames, and it was clear that he was dishonest. He didn't disclose that information before the time. Subsequent to that, we've learned and we've put in lots of controls around our rental units. The policy's also been amended so that we can cater for these controls and put them in place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. De Wet, and thank you to your colleagues for your responses. Yeah, it was responded to. I think you were busy on your telephone, and you do have a policy in place. Okay, colleagues, it seems as we have exhausted Section C of the annual report, and now we will move on to a much more substantive section of the report, and that is Section E, starting on page 117, financial information, part E, to page 230, inclusive of all the annexures attached to it. So it is quite a bit of information that we will be traversing now. It is, and hopefully we will conclude this by tonight. So colleagues, I open the floor for questions and inputs and discussions. So and I'm going to start saying that I'm in a way sort of perplexed in the sense that I just want to go to this part of the report where it's part of the annexures, I think not the annexures, part of the notes where it was listed all the non-compliant. I just want to get to it because I just, yeah, on page 172, the details of all the irregular expenditure, and it is tabulated there. It amounts to 221,640,000 rand. Now that's quite a bit of money. Now, much of it had been condoned. I accept that. But what is perplexing for me is that it was the second column, disciplinary steps taken, criminal proceedings. Now I understand that the standard is very high for criminal proceedings to be instituted, but there was not a single disciplinary step taken against these non-compliance, not even a written warning, not even counseling, nothing. It says nothing. So, you know, it's for me that is, I'm really surprised, and maybe there's an explanation for it, and I'm sure there will be. And then on page 171, these this, you know, all the listed all the irregular expenditure. Mr. Devet, you alluded to it, and I'm just going to just go to the note at the bottom. The department is in the process to investigate all FLIS payments to quantify the expenditure incurred dating back from 2016 to determine the full extent of the irregular expenditure incurred. Now, our feedback from the AGU is that you have already quantified that, and you've arrived at an amount of 22 million rand. Is that correct? Or are you still in the process of getting a more complete picture of the quantum of the irregular expenditure that occurred over the period of time, that the 22 million rand is merely just a preliminary figure that you've arrived at for reporting purposes? And I'm going to hand over to our colleagues, my colleagues on the left, and they will pursue the questions. Honourable Nkondlo.
No, thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I would like to start by the Auditor General's report, which I think also the department, I'm sure they are quite aware of what is in the Auditor General's report. I think the first one for me relates to what the Auditor General's refer to some of the, I just want to read the verbatim. in the internal control deficiencies, that the leadership did not ensure documented standard operating procedures, the DORA issue and all of that. And I'm interested, Minister, because obviously from the conversation of accountability, leadership at this point would be yourself together with the senior management of this department. That what seems to be your challenge at this point, and do you agree? And actually, I must not even ask. You said you agree with the Auditor General, and I'm asking from your point of view, what is it that you would have done, or in this financial year coming, as you promised to come back to us differently, what would you have done from your side to ensure that, from a leadership perspective, the kind of challenges raised here actually do not recur? I'm interested in that. The second one actually is around the very specific issue of the merger, and I'm sure you would have known in the House we had a conversation about this, which I still feel bruised, because I think in the manner in which the response was given, actually I would say I'm vindicated if the AG is raising this, because that was the question one was trying to ask about the subsequent impacts of the merger of these departments. And the AG here, if you read, says this major change could have various impacts on how the departments account for transactions in the financial statements in the next financial year and various other operations. So you already spoken about, I'm assuming a program or sub-program on human settlements and any other. Can you provide a scoper, some kind of a plan that is already in place, that actually, as we are starting in this current financial year that we are in, that already there are mechanisms to deal with these possible impacts? Because I think that was the intention of the question at the time, was to try to understand that any major any measure of any department would have a particular impact, obviously from an HR and otherwise. And I think at that time in the House, I think this matter was highly dismissed. And I'm interested now, indeed, and I would like evidence that would be provided in SCOPA on how this particular measure is being managed from the departmental side, so that you reduce the kind of negative impact, particularly in the transition process between human settlement and the new department. That includes if there would be any programmatic changes or shifts from the old department to the new. So let me just stop there, Chair. I would come back in the other round.
Thank you, Honourable Kondlu. Honourable van der Westhuizen, I recognize you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, I think the one thing that we need to acknowledge is that despite this being quite a disrupted year, where even construction work had to come to a standstill and were limited, and there were lots of limitations put on contractors, that the department still spent a very good percentage of the money on the projects, and I think for that they should be commended. I've got two issues. The first one is we also learned last week when we met regarding the Premier's role and the outcomes there, that the State Information Technology Agency has unfortunately underperformed and has unfortunately acted as a limiting factor in terms of spending on certain ICT equipment, which I think is a very important aspect. And I can just reiterate what we've said there, that we hope that that issue will be resolved. I have actually, my impression is that they've been put on terms by the Western Cape. If they can't deliver, then the Western Cape believe that we should not be held bound by CETA contracts, etc. And then the last one, Chair, and while I know there's a huge sentiment that we should be looking at local enterprises, that perhaps the requirement that contractors should have a Western Cape office that be waived. And I would just like to know whether we can get the assurance that on that aspect, the AG's, can I say, findings or the AG's advice that be scrapped, that would indeed be implemented and that hopefully it has been implemented already. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen, Honourable Moran, and Honourable Tleku thereafter.
Thanks, Chair. So I'm back at the issue of the title deeds, Chair. Can the department tell us what did the supporting evidence show? Although we have said we have asked the question to the AG's office, what did the supporting evidence show and how did it differ with the number reported by the department? Chair, that's the one. Then, Chair, and maybe some of the questions that I'm going to ask, Chair, maybe have been asked previously because it seems we 124 note 14, Chair. Leadership did not inform National Treasury of an increased payment to other organ of state as required by section 16.3 of the DORA. What are the details of that payment, Chair? Then, Chair, note 124 note 41. And we have spoken, Chair, of the tax non-compliance. Note 41, Chair, leadership implemented an action plan to address prior year's audit findings. And this plan did not assist to remediate some areas of compliance, which include tax non-compliance status of suppliers. So it's not the first time in the financial year under discussion where there was tax non-compliance of contractors, suppliers. So it seems, according to what we read in 41, is that the plan basically that's been implemented is not working. It's not working because there was prior years where the AG have engaged tax non-compliance. Can you correct? And it happened also under the year under discussion. What is the department planning to do to overcome that obstacle, Chair? And then, Chair, and I think you have touched on this issue of remedial action and whether some officials been charged, warned, or some. 125 speak about other reports. Provincial Forensic Services were investigating the two cases, so forth. But it seems the outcome, Chair, there is no remedial action. It seems people are continuing as normal. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Moran. Honourable Tleku.
Thanks, Chair. Mine is on page 123. And then I think it's number 30 there, where it says a portion of the funds received from the regarding the grants, conditional grants, the transfer of this portion of informal settlement upgrading partnership grant to B2 municipality without notifying and getting the approval from the National Treasury and therefore infringing provisions of DORA. I think Honorable Nkondlo did touch that, but can we be clarified further about the implications of such? And then also on page 157, regarding the goods and services, the audit report mentioned earlier on that on page 119 that the department is a defendant in a various ongoing litigation and claims. Then we can see that here that it has already spent more than 6 million on legal services. So what is the cause of these ongoing legal claims that the department is defending itself against, and how can they be avoided because now taxpayers' money that should be spent in providing poor people with houses is now spent on the department defending itself in court. And then furthermore, on page 160, under 6.2, the debts written off, which are salary related, amount to 17,000. So how did this debt come about, and why is the department not recovering them, but writing them off? If we can be able to get clarity as far as that is concerned. I still have got more, Chair, but I don't know if I could continue or I should give a chance to others. Chairperson. Should I continue with all of them?
Yes,
Sure.
you can finish on.
All right. Then on page 166, Chair, at number 18, regarding the 20 million damages claim against the department, I just want clarity in terms of how did it come to about that the department be defendant in that particular matter. What exactly, Samuel? What was the contractual agreement between the department and the contractor who built a half-built wall regarding the liability with regards to the work it carries out of the department? And then on page 174, the last one, at 24.4, regarding details of irregular expenditure removed, please explain how the department ended up incurring an irregular expenditure of 70.7 million for services that were not for the department's properties. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. So just throw in my twopence before the response. So the vet audit costs, it's over 11 million rand. Could you perhaps just provide a little clarity, because in terms of the explanation is external audit and is only in relation to the costs that you've incurred with, because it's substantially increased from the previous year. I hand over to Ms. August, I hand over to you, and then you can take it. And the Minister would also like to respond. Shall I give the Minister an opportunity first?
Thank you, Chair. Like I said, I'm here to account, so I'd like to engage and respond to some of the questions that I'm posed. Firstly, Member America, yourself, I think you have referred to this. Member Maran has referred to this. Member Trejo has referred to this. It's the issue of, why was no disciplinary action where we noted non-compliance? Now, obviously for the year under review, the CFO must answer that. But moving ahead, because we're busy winding up the department, as part of our audit turnaround plan moving forward, and I said, the issue of culture and the issue of non-accountability is a very negative component of culture, which you are seeing clearly in this report, but that will be addressed moving forward. That I can certainly assure the scope on. Member Nkondlo, indeed, as we now prepare to wind up the department, to merge so it can become one with infrastructure, you look at risks, and the risks have been identified. We now we'll look at how do we mitigate these risks. But because you want to zoom in a bit on the Department of Infrastructure itself, even though I did the report on it because it's in draft form, indeed, like I indicated, there are 5 legs upon which infrastructure is built. The second leg is human settlements. It consists of, it will consist within the new department of 3 sub-programs. One of the current human settlements sub-program levels will now form and merge to become as one under the 5th leg of infrastructure, which is finance. So, like we are seeking to address the risks, we also now seek to build on that which is or can be seen as increasing the level of excellence and the level of accountabilities in the other sister department, which we will seek to engage on and also utilize that. So I I can ensure a SCOPA chairperson that as we wind up the department and we know what the risks are, we will seek to address those risks, because next year I must still come and account for the department that has been wound up. So, and we'll definitely look into welcome that the meeting on that day. Chairperson, so indeed, the thought with where we are heading is clear. The fact that we are well aware of the risks. I can really, just like I told the AG, Honourable Chairperson, because they asked me the same questions, we will not start something new without addressing the old. I will not take empty skeletons into a new department. And where people will be held accountable, they will be held accountable. That is one of the deficiencies in the culture of the department. It's a level of accountability. That's why I can sit here and take accountability for my department's actions. That shows that as the executive authority, it starts with me, and it will filter down to all levels within the Department of Human Settlements. That I can guarantee you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Van der Wet.
Chairperson, thank you.
you.
The issue on the material irregularity, the 22 million, that was only for the 3 years. Okay, from 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21. So, and 21, 22, we're going back now. Yeah? To include all the years since the FLIS has been introduced. We work through each and every file. And we do not do steekproeven, what you call samples. We do everything 100%. So we do everything. On the irregular expenditure and why there was no disciplinary actions taken, all these all the cases are sent to the Provincial Treasury for condonment. Okay? And they will look at the background, what led to it, was there any malafidus, was there any negligence of officials and so on, and then they will then decide to condone or not to condone, but they also do make recommendations for disciplinary actions and or not. So up to now, no disciplinary actions has been recommended for that. This upset malafidus, if you look what's about, the one was the bias one, where we had offices, part of the tender requirement was to have offices in the Western Cape. That was found to not be fair, transparent and equitable. And I think the member also asked, we'll have to change the constitution member van der West Station, because that is written into the constitution. Then the impact of the merger with the Transport and Public Works, this is not only, I think, between the Department of Human Settlement and the Department of Transport and Public Works. There's a whole work group working with it with different work streams. OD is involved, Provincial Treasury is involved, it's the systems, it's the assets. That's a whole detailed plan is available, and that is being then reported against. So it is quite a substantial job to get everything in place on the 1st of April. Then we took note of the underperformance of CITA, and that was one of the reasons why we couldn't spend our IT budget, because they just couldn't deliver to us, but that has subsequently been resolved. The title deeds, the material differences. Can I now just look at what happened with the title deeds? There was 2 issues. The one was, and that is the one where they indicated that there's a material difference between what is reported and what they found. So what happened? They did this, the Auditor General. We submitted a population to them. They tested it, and they found some errors. For instance, there was 2 cases where FLIS subsidies were reported there. Then there was 4 cases where the title deeds did not incur in the period from April to March. Then one property was not registered in anybody's name, and then 4 cases where the app was not yet registered. And how the methodology works is that you get another chance to submit a revised, updated, and cleaned up population. We submitted that. We were found wanting on duplicates, whereby we ran the ID numbers, also check for duplicate ID numbers instead of check for duplicate title deed numbers. So they didn't test any further, and that is their right. That's their way. That's their methodology, how they do that specific one. So it is quite interesting. I would love to see what was the real result. How many was actually done now found wanting, but right, okay, they didn't audit any further because it was not. The second sample was found to be also corrupt. The other case was, like I indicated, it's the difference of the indicator and the reliability of it. So that was the two title deed cases, how they what that found us wanting and gave us the qualification on the predetermined objectives. Then the Bito Dora issue, I did touch on it. We paid in December, we paid an amount to Bito of 7.9 million rand. The agreement with them, the funding agreement was for the full amount for 7.9 million. What happened there, they were busy with the Colweni upgrading, and the contractor that did relocations, he wasn't paid because the municipality didn't have money. So we gave the full amount of 7.9 that was earmarked for the relocations. We paid an upfront to the municipality. In the adjustments budget, we only allocated 4 million rand for that specific project, and so that leaves the amount of 3.9 million rand not to be gazetted, and that we were found wanting on that. So that is the big issue that we had, and we are taking it up with the Provincial Treasury because it is an agency service, but it was gazetted, and therefore the rules apply. Then on legal services, we had a lot of cases, COVID cases and so on, claims that we had to assess that's costing us money, but contractors submit ridiculous amounts of claims, and we have to deal with it. Some take us to court, and then we do have to employ legal counsel, but it also includes our costs that we incur for transfers, and we do a whole lot of transfers ourselves. So the 6 million that we spent on legal costs was fully substantiated, and we got value for money for that. The 17,000 salary-related claims, that was a case where an official, unfortunately, died. His salary was paid, and the family didn't pay the money back. The money was already in his bank account. They withdraw the money. And yeah, so instead of going all the way and spend more money on legal costs, it went to the state attorney, who recommended us to write it off. Then the one that was removed, that was in terms of the red ants, where the Treasury indicated it is not irregular, that appointment, and that the HOD or the accounting offer should reclassify it and remove it from the schedule. Okay. The audit costs of 11 million rand, quite substantive. The AG assisted us there with a note. They were very adamant on that note, and it is due to various material non-compliances that we had in the previous financial year. Remember last year we also had a qualification, not the qualification, we had not a clean audit. Material misstatements that we had. and also finding some predetermined objectives in 2021. And then this together with the audit finding, including transversal audit finding in respect of local content and classification by the Auditor General of South Africa, PT, and National Treasury, and that also had a huge, a substantial increase in audit hours. And of course, the material irregularity audit that they also had to do. There was actually two that they also, another one that they also investigated, but subsequently they didn't proceed with that specific one. So that all contributed to additional audit costs. Our audit was only concluded on the 24th of October 2021. So if you take that and that all that hours, so that led to that additional money that we spent on it. Yeah, we've dealt with that. The Western Cape office, we did say it will be in against the constitution of a fair, equitable and transparent procurement system. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. De Wet. Colleagues, follow-up questions for clarity? If there are any, Honourable Nkondlo, is your hand raised or is it? Okay, sure. Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Page 160. In page 160, actually, I wanted to ask the question regarding the staff overpayments. And if you can explain, I think it's a question when we met with the Department of the Premier, given their role as CSC, that these overpayments are actually emanating from departments. So one is just posing into this department and to just understand the staff overpayments in the Department of Human Settlements, and whether what is 6.2, that is debts written off, that are written there from 2021 to the 2022 financial year, I can see the increase there. But also what is its relationship to the what is in the staff debt, or it's something different in 11.3. That's my first question, Chair. And then further, I think in 14.1, so that's the problem with technology. With my, don't know how now I've lost this one. Okay, in 14.1, okay, let me start with 14.2, the overpayment of 2.1 from the Provincial Treasury. Can you explain what this overpayment was for? Why such has happened? Was it an error? If so, how did it happen? And I think I wanted to understand, I think in 14.1 and 15.1 in the advances, what does that mean? Particularly, I think in the notes, in the, I think the box there, there's an explanation about some of the amounts from the City of Cape Town regarding bulk infrastructure. So I'm trying to understand, are these monies that are being returned by the City of Cape Town to the department, and if they were for bulk infrastructure, for where are these projects were supposed to take place, and what then becomes of that bulk infrastructure in those particular projects. That's 14.1. There it mentions the grants received from the City of Cape Town. I'm just asking some clarity in terms of maybe just giving me explanation about it. And then there is I think in under claims recoverable, yes, in 11. That's page 162. There's something there that says the amount for private enterprises mainly relates to fraudulent use of PHP subsidies which were held in trust by account administrators. Can you explain to me what does this mean? What happened here? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kondlu. Anybody else? Okay, right. Mr. De Wet.
The staff debt versus salary debt. That is when we give bursaries to staff when they fail to complete. They have a debt, and then that debt is then registered. And some cases it happens that we submit it when they leave the employ of the state. We submit it on a form that goes to their pension fund before they can issue pay out the pension. Sometimes the pension fund doesn't deduct that. Okay, and then there's a debt of say 10,000 Rand or 5,000 Rand, and then it's not economically viable to chase it any further. We go to the state attorney, we ask them for an opinion, and then they will give us the opinion that we should write it off. But everything is going through the state attorney. They determine if it's feasible, and if the official didn't, what you call it, forfeit is what you call it, state protection and so on. There's also staff that will have like an accident with a car and found liable, and then it will also be there. The overpayment of 2.193 by the Provincial Treasury, we've got a budget of say 2 billion Rand. Throughout the year, every month they pay us money, over every day actually. In this case, they paid us 2.193 million Rand too much. We brought it to their attention, and then we paid that money back to them. But as of the 31st of March, the amount that they overpaid to us is more than what was voted in Parliament, was 2.193 million Rand. It was just an oversight, a human error, so it's nothing malicious there. The City of Cape Town, they've got the Urban Settlement Development Grant that they received directly from National Department of Human Settlements that has been utilized for bulk infrastructure. We have an agency agreement with them whereby we will make use of that bulk infrastructure money when we develop projects. They will fund us. Part of the agreement is that they must pay us in advance. According to a cash flow, we cannot use the provincial money for that. Then otherwise we will run out of our own money, and then we cannot pay our contractors. And the infrastructure becomes the asset of the City of Cape Town, the municipality. Then PHP accounts administrators in the old times, pre-2015, we paid money over to account administrators, mostly they are all registered and they have professional indemnity, but we had the few that misappropriated that funds. In this case, that specific one, the 2 million Rand that's there, that one comes a long way. That it's actually an attorney, and he pays us back every month. He pays us back an amount of money, and as per the agreement with him, so we're getting the money back. I think that was the questions.
Thank you, Mr. De Wet. So, colleagues, at this stage, I'd like to ascertain whether there are any members of the public present who would like to, or online, who would like to pose a question. Going once, twice, zero. No members of the public present. So that, in terms of our engagement with the department and the officials and the minister and the audit committee and the AG's office, has come to a conclusion. I'm going to ask my colleague and favorite chair of the Human Settlement Department to do the thanking for our stakeholders on behalf of the committee. Chairperson.
I'll do that, Chair. Thank you very much. Also, let me start with you for standing in for Chair of the SCOPA. We really appreciate your time, and I know it's been a long day for you, and still you managed to steer this ship. And to Minister and the department also, it's been a long day. But I think this is what we are meant to do. And I always say this, that as a human settlements family, also joined by the SCOPA family, we always try to make sure that whatever question is a representation of our constituencies, of our communities within the province. And the challenges are there. You know, human settlements, it's like a moving target. When you think that you are done with this program, you have championed it, something crops up. But what is important is striving to make sure that we do as much as we can. And as a family, because we ask the questions that also give indication to the department that what is it that is needed as we do our oversight. So for this financial year of 2021-2022, there are teething problems, but I tend to believe that we will manage to make sure, together with the standing committee, also zooming on what the department is implementing, we'll manage to come out better than this financial year for the 2022-2023. So thank you very much, Minister. It's not going to be easy. You are adding the infrastructure. But with human settlement as a program, I tend to believe that we will champion that. And to all the officials, CFO, and those that have left us, Pela, Jackson, Sampson, we can always say that all the best where they are going and all the best for the ones remaining for the betterment of this department. And to the standing committee of SCOPA, thank you for keeping up the department on toes and making sure also that they do what is expected from you in asking those difficult questions. Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And lastly, I'm just going to hand over to, before I conclude, to the Minister, if he wants to, or to the CFO first, and then the Minister will have the last word, and then I will just wrap up and conclude.
There was one question on the let's procurement, that for forensic services number 13 of 21, the property bank, that one, that was the 2019-20 case. Okay, it comes from 2019-20.
Yeah.
So it just was just mentioning the accounting office, the ex-accounting officer, whatever. I'm just putting it to the table. That was long ago.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. August, do you have final words?
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, members. I think I need to say thank you to my team. They've done a lot of work to prepare for this. The CFO and Pila really worked closely with the Auditor General. It was a bruising battle for everybody involved. And just to say thank you to the Auditor General team as well. For the professionalism shown and the support given. The management report, while having lots of challenges, also gives lots of guidance. So just to say thank you for that. Thank you to all the members for spending the day with us. We learn from these questions. We learn where to focus ourselves as the year progresses. So just to say thank you for the thoughtful, thought-provoking questions that were raised. And thank you to the team that joined us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. August. And last but not least, Minister, final words.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, it has been a very long day, but you know, accounting for what you do as a department is crucial. That ensures the checks and balances which this provincial government is built on. We also speak of the integrity, not only of the ministry, but of the department and the standing committee and your role as well, Chair. And yes, not everything is perfect. Nothing will ever be, but it's how we rise to the challenge that's important. And that for me, taking note of today's robust questions and responses, and I believe in the team, and the team will rise to the challenge. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Minister. From our side, AG's office, thank you, Mr. Olkers and your team, and Internal Audit Committee, Ms. Elias and your team. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you, colleagues, for the officials and the Minister. We will allow them to exit the meeting. Our members will remain behind for resolutions that we want to adopt, and then it will be the end of the day for us. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Presentation notes. Colleagues, it's been a long day. Thank you for bearing with us. So I'm going to ask, are there any resolutions that you'd like to submit now? Please do so. Any specific resolutions? Mr. Nkondlu?
Yes, the Minister, I think, spoke about, I think what he's, I think he said he has approved, if I'm not mistaken, I think the transition from human settlements to infrastructure. So one would be interested to that, I don't know whether he called it a concept or whatever that it is, but I think he did refer to a document that I'm not sure it has already been approved by Cabinet, but if approved by Cabinet, I think one would be interested to get a copy of that to see how this process of the transition goes. There's the...
Okay. So, put it down, okay.
Okay. And then, Chair, I'm interested, I think, in this thing of the rental units, if they can just give us some information currently about, the current contracts that are there, so that we get to understand what is the situation about the rental units. I think those would be my submissions for now. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable. Okay, Honorable. Okay, Honorable van der Westhuizen, do you have any resolutions now? Which one? Oh, that one. Okay. Okay, that's always possible. Honorable van der Westhuizen, do you have any specific resolutions now?
Not specifically, Chair. It seems to me as if the majority of the issues raised by the Auditor General are things that the department has already been, incorporating, etc. And I think we could just, wish them everything of the best in the journey back to a clean audit. It seems to me the frustration is that the Auditor General tends to audit different aspects as they go along, such as, for example, now the title deeds. And so obviously then you focus on the title deeds to be able to satisfy the Auditor General there. And next year there's something different. So I'm just wondering whether one wouldn't be able to, as a committee, say, but can we ask of the Auditor General to please not move the goalposts unless there's a completely new regulation that's come in, etc. But things like title deeds and having title deeds as a target has been along for many years, and I think we must get to a point where people must know what the Auditor General will be looking for when they move into the offices and start, asking you to open your books, etc. So my request would be that we ask for the Auditor General to be more consistent in terms of their approach of their annual audits, even if they do sampling, even if they don't do everything every year. But you must know your title deeds must be auditable, if I can call it like that. But it is really difficult if different people turn up, because audit teams change, and everybody wants, a different standard or is looking at different aspects of your work, and I think that will help a lot to instill also respect for the office of the Auditor General, where people know this is what they will be looking at, this is what we must have ready for them, and if we're ready, then it will be a clean audit.
Hi, thank you. I beg to differ. With respect, respectfully, I differ from that view, Honourable van der Westhuizen says. I think that there is an engagement letter that they have with the department. Any audit needs to have an engagement letter whereby they inform the department what the audit scope will be. And if we're going to expect the auditor to tell us what is going to be audited, that we're just going to concentrate on that element that makes sure that everything is right. In fact, you should come to my company and audit anything. If I need to do the right thing with all the things that I do, and not specifically what I know that they're going to. And I don't think that we can impose that. And maybe we can have a discussion with the department at the later stage as to, what I do, have a problem with is the enormous audit costs. I mean, it is prohibitive. They have a monopoly, and how come it justifies that 11 million rand? PricewaterhouseCoopers is not going to charge even that.
Chair, on that I must unfortunately agree with you. But can I just say, when I say that you need to know what the auditor is going to look at, the auditor must say, if they're going to come and inspect the fleet, whether all the fleet vehicles' tires are still legitimate or the tread left is legitimate, then they must say it. Even if they say there's a million things that we're going to come that we can look at. These are the million things. But we need to know what is inside the audit and what is outside of an audit. And that is what I plead for. That is what I plead for. Are they going to audit, let's call it, minutes of proceedings? Are they going to audit, the frequency of meetings, etc.? Probably yes. They want to see whether the audit committee has been meeting regularly, etc. But please give us that list of what you're going to come, because what I've seen too often is that when the auditor comes now, people start running around because they ask things which you never expected them to ask. And it's not as if you're not compliant, it's just, and that pushes up costs. That means that eventually they sit with you for a month where they could have been in your offices for a week, when everything would have been filed, it's ready, you asked for it, here it is. If you don't look at file B, that's fine. File C is there, D is there. And I think we're not on different pages. If we say, be clear, be concise, tell us what you're going to do, and then we will be ready. We will save you time, and you will save us time. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Seku.
Chair, I think both of you agree on principle of that list, but I think coming back to the resolutions, we have to have the resolutions also today that are going to be the scope for the human settlements in our report to them, doing the monitoring of the issues that have been identified by Auditor General. So we mustn't forget that is going to be the 2022-2023. We'll have the slot of the scope. So if we can have that of issues that we have raised today and have those resolutions, it will make also easier for because the audit committee have got theirs, we do have ours also in the annual report. So if we can concentrate on that also, we can submit. And I'm not taking off from what you're saying and members saying, but also that monitoring part, that oversight part, we also have to give the resolutions that talk to the oversight of what we identified and what is it that we can put in there that will give sort of a directive to the Department of Human Settlements to zoom in.
Thank you, Honourable Ms. Seku and Honourable Teko. Recognize you.
Yes, Chair. I hear what Honourable Van der Westhuizen is saying about time management of the audit period or process itself, which would assist in also capping unwarranted costs. But I've got a problem with the auditing process, because in most instances when we ask the Auditor General's office about certain things that they wouldn't pick up during the auditing process, then because they would refer to saying that they are sampling, they don't audit everything. Now with them concentrating on sampling and also coming with a scope, I don't think they would be doing justice to financial management and observation. I think we need to restructure that resolution so that at least it would talk to issues of accountability. It would seem as if now we want people to because if people manipulate processes and now you give them scope, they will manipulate that scope as well. So it won't serve any purpose. You get that, because they will come that everything would have been dealt with. So what exactly would the Auditor General be doing? So I'm concerned about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Teko, and this brings us to the end of our meeting. Allow me to thank our procedural officers, Senior Procedural Officer Ms. Kluter and Ms. David. Thank you for your logistical support and your moral support. Thank you. And to you colleagues, thanks a lot for your robust engagement and support for the process. Much appreciated, and may you have an enjoyable evening further. Thank you. Suppose there's more coffee there or what? Okay. Okay, thanks all. Thank you. The coffee is still there, so you may enjoy coffee. Thank you.